Hey, what's up everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we are doing another discography ranking. I'm very excited to be finally tackling this one. I've been putting this off for a while, but I wanted to do it, and that is Running Wild. So what got me in the mood to doing this discography is Quest for Metal, or Questy. He did this ranking last month, and it really got me in the mood to go back and listen to a lot of these albums that I hadn't listened to in a while. Honestly, they have 17 albums in their career, if you're not familiar with the band. And in my regular listening habits, their first 10 albums are consistently in my rotation. This is a band that I would be hard-pressed to find another band that released 10 albums in a row to start their career that are better than this. Maybe a couple bands out there, but not too many. Their career started so strong, just stellar albums throughout those first 10 albums. But then all their albums in the last 20 years really didn't interest me that much. They kind of fell off a cliff in terms of quality, at least to me. There's still a couple okay ones in there, but shadows of their former selves. So that's kind of why I was putting off doing this. Listening to those later albums is not something I've done in the last couple of years, but I went back and listened to the more recent stuff to do this ranking, and we'll see if my opinions of any of those later day ones have changed. So as I'm going through this list, it may sound negative at the beginning because there's a few albums I really don't like, but stay tuned because later on I will be heaping nothing but praise on this band. I do hold this band in very high regard, but more for their early days than their more recent works. If you're unfamiliar with this band, I don't know how, but they are pretty underrated actually. They never got the notoriety as some bigger names, but they're from Germany, play a unique blend of like just classic heavy metal, speed metal with power metal, all themed around pirates, at least after their first couple albums. Their first couple albums weren't pirate themed, but they kind of shifted towards that on their third album onwards and kind of stuck with that theme throughout their career. I'd say this would be a band for fans of bands like Judas Priest, Halloween, Gravedigger, Except, anything in that general vibe. You will probably get some enjoyment here. Really known for the killer riffs on display. Like, you will not hear a Running Wild album and be unimpressed with the guitar work. Like, riffs upon riffs upon riffs. Amazing guitar work, just galloping riffs and speedy tempos. Melodic and catchy tales of the sea throughout their discography. Really awesome stuff. Just metal anthems, really catchy tunes. The main dude behind the band, Rock and Rolf, on guitar and vocals. His voice is very unique, very recognizable right away that you'll know it's Running Wild. And yeah, without further ado, 17 albums. This is going to be a long one, but I'm going to go through them from my least favorite all the way down to my favorite. So let's see what order I have got them in. Okay, coming in last place, I am going to 2012 with the album Shadowmaker. This one, pile of garbage. Honestly, I can't say anything positive about this album. The album art sucks, and what's contained inside sucks just as hard. Like, they had broken up, and then this was the first album for their reunion after like 7 or 8 years of not being together. And it's like, why? Why did you reunite to put this out? Because this is just rough. Big time shadow of their former selves. Just not the same sound at all. More of like a rock and roll style. It's just not for me. At this stage in their career, they never really had a drummer. It was always programmed drums, and they just sound bad. It's boring, monotonous. It just doesn't add anything to it. I'm not even going to pick favorite songs. I listened to this album again to make this ranking. I don't think I'm ever going to go back to it. It's just not good. Not an album I like. Easily in last place. Up next in 16th, I'm going to the album that was right after that from 2013, Resilient. So this one is a touch better than Shadowmaker, but that's really not saying much. It's still just very generic songwriting. It's just very mediocre. There's nothing exciting about this album to me. Like, it just doesn't have the same spirit and energy as their earlier works. Another one where I'm not going to pick favorite songs because this is just not an album I'm going to see myself going back to. If I want to listen to Running Wild, it's not going to be these albums. I just don't like this one really at all. That's why it's in 16th. Up next in 15th, I'm going to the album that was before they broke up, the album before Shadowmaker from 2005, Rogues on Vogue. So this album really suffers from terrible production. It just doesn't sound great. And once again, the monotonous drums just really ruin it. And then it's just uninspired songwriting. It's hard to get through this album as well. Like, it just, once again, what I've said with the last couple albums, it just doesn't have the same energy that their earlier works had, and it's just not an album that I really want to go back to. It's just lacking in everything that I had come to expect from Running Wild. So another one that, yeah, I'm probably not really going to ever go back to this album. I just don't enjoy it. It's not the Running Wild that I want to listen to. Moving it along, up in 14th place, going with Rapid Foray. This one was from 2016, so their second most recent album. So after the few that had preceded this, this is actually their best album in a while, after the stretch of 3 that were pretty bad, but still doesn't quite hold a candle to the classics. Like, this isn't on the same level as that at all, but they have brought back a few speedier tracks, kind of harkening back to the days of old. The drums still sound like shit though. They're just boring. Like, get a better get a drummer, and if you're gonna program drums, do it better. Make them sound interesting. It's just boring in terms of the drumming. But nonetheless, this album did get a little bit better than the ones I just talked about. Still not one that I really see myself going back to a ton, but it's a little bit better than the ones I just mentioned. Up next in 13th, I'm going to their newest album from 2021, Blood on Blood. So once again, still programmed, annoying, boring drums. Like, you're Running Wild, you can't find a drummer. There would be drummers that would absolutely kill to play in this band, but I digress. That's besides the point. This album did get better than all of the ones that I just said. This is easily the best of their reunion albums. Still not necessarily saying much. It's a far cry from their days of glory, but nonetheless, this is a little bit better than everything I just said. While I still find it a little bland compared to their best works, it's getting a little better. Here's where on the list, these albums actually are listenable. This is a listenable album. I would go and listen to this album. While it's not great, it's okay. It's very mediocre. I don't hate this album. It's okay. Favorite track, if I had to pick one, probably Crossing the Blades. So all in all, this album's okay. Not awesome, but it's okay. Now let's get into better stuff here. In 12th place, I'm going to 2002, their last album before they broke up initially, The Brotherhood. So this one really brought in more of a hard rock influence and direction compared to what they had done before. This still has some moments that are pretty good though. The drum machine that I've talked about throughout this so far, it is on this album as well, and it just really makes the material suffer. It just doesn't add anything to it. The drumming is so boring on this album. But this is a little bit better than the stuff that would follow. It still doesn't quite have that spirit of the older albums that I absolutely love, but this album is not terrible here. They got some good tracks like Pirate Song, Welcome to Hell. So all in all, this one's pretty decent in 12th place. All right, from here on out, these are pretty solid albums. I mean, the next couple are maybe not what I would consider like masterpieces, but then after that, pretty much everything is a masterpiece. So let's find out. In 11th place, I'm going to the album that was right before The Brotherhood from the year 2000, Victory. So this one, yeah, it's, once again, this is not a garbage album. This is one that I would actually listen to. I know at the beginning of the video I said I constantly go back to the top 10 albums. This one's in 11th. It's not one that I have in regular rotation, but it is decent. I do enjoy this album. It's just not on par with their best. But yeah, it's just not as speed-oriented as their past works. It really slowed the tempos down, which isn't quite the Running Wild that I'm looking for, but it's still okay. It's just not as good as what they've done before, but there's still some good songs on here. Title track Victory is solid when time runs out. So all in all, pretty decent album. But now let's end the negativity and get into the goods. Like top 10, the 10 best Running Wild albums are their first 10, but let's see what order I've got them in, because it's not just going to be a straightforward order of 1 through 10 here. It's going to bounce around. Let's find out what order I got it in right now. In 10th place, I'm going to 1998 with The Rivalry. So this is actually their 10th album, and to me, this is the last really solid album before it started kind of diving into mediocrity. But nonetheless, this still, I wouldn't consider this one quite on par with the albums that preceded it, but it's still a very good album. There's some killer tracks on here. Maybe the album as a whole is a little bit too long, kind of drags a little bit, which is my one knock on it. But nonetheless, there's some solid tracks here. The Ballad of William Kidd, come on. The title track, The Rivalry, this is a pretty solid album. Maybe not a masterpiece, but pretty solid in 10th place. All right, up next in 9th, I'm actually going to the album right before that from 1995, Masquerade. So I have not talked about the album that's before Masquerade, Blackhand In, yet, but this one really has the same vibe. It almost feels like Blackhand In Part 2. We'll see where I rank Blackhand In later on. But this one just has a very similar sound, very similar approach. It almost feels like these songs could have been leftovers from that session, but it just doesn't quite hit the peaks of Blackhand In. But nonetheless, this is still a very, very good album. Maybe it's not quite as passionate as the albums that came before it, but this is still a very solid album. Like, this is an 8 out of 10 album. The ones before it are just even better because this band is amazing. But so I don't want this to sound negative. This album kicks ass. It's just the ones before it are even better. But this, yeah, the vocals are a little bit low in the mix. That's maybe what holds it back from being as good as it could be. But there's still great songs on here. Lions of the Sea, Underworld. All in all, very solid album in 9th place. All right, now let's get into even better stuff. The top 8 here. From here on out, I pretty much consider all of these masterpieces. These are goddamn great albums. Enough of the negativity. I am going to be doing nothing but heaping praise now because I goddamn love every single one of these albums, and these are the albums that I really listen to pretty much all the time. Let's see what order I got them in. This was very tough to rank these 8 because they are all so solid, and this order could switch daily, but let's see what I got for today. In 8th place, I'm going to 1992 with Pile of Skulls. So this is probably their most aggressive album, a way more aggressive approach than what they had done before, just really upped the speed and power here. Maybe lost a little bit of the melody from the previous albums, but that's not a knock on. It's a different style. They switched it up, and I applaud them for it. It's not just putting out the same album over and over again. They switched up the approach and really brought in that aggressive power metal feel here. And this just rips from front to back. It's still full of catchy-ass choruses that they're really known for, and it's just pretty great. Yeah, I'm putting it in 8th, so maybe that sounds like everything I'm saying, it should be higher, but every one of these albums that I'm going to be talking about from here on out is amazing. So it's hard to rank, but yeah, this is a goddamn great album. Favorite songs here, Whirlwind, Treasure Island, of course. Come on, the epic on this album, just amazing. Black Wings of Death as well. All in all, very solid album in 8th place. Up next in 7th, I'm going to the album that was right after that. I kind of name dropped it before, from 1994, Blackhand In. So this is the album that preceded Masquerade, but this one I think knocks Masquerade out of the park. This is just amazing from front to back. This is a little more balanced than Pile of Skulls. I really had a tough time deciding which one would be 8th, which one would be 7th, because I consider these pretty much on the same level of excellence. But I just found there's a little more balance on this album. It's so melodic and catchy. Like, yeah, stop me if you've heard that before. I'm going to be saying this throughout, that most of their albums are very melodic and catchy. But when the songs are this well crafted, it's just amazing stuff. Like, this is some of their strongest material they ever did in their career. Like, yeah, it's following the same template of style of what they've done earlier, but so what? Like, these songs are amazing. This is one of their more power metal oriented albums, and it just really, really works. Favorite tracks here, The Privateer is amazing. The Phantom of Blackhand Hill is possibly my favorite. And then, of course, the long epic Genesis, The Making and Fall of Man. Yeah, amazing album. I know this is probably low, considering most people would probably have this higher than 7th, but I just love the next 6 even more. But like I said, this could switch any given day. For today, Blackhand In is in 7th place. Up next in 6th, I'm going to their 3rd album, which is from 1987, Under Jolly Roger. So this is kind of a transitional album. They had their style on their first 2 albums, which I haven't talked about yet. And then this is where they started bringing in the pirate theme, but maybe weren't fully into the pirate theme yet. It was kind of a transition of the style from the first 2 albums and the power metal style that would follow. But yeah, this is just like classic heavy speed metal. It's got like Judas Priest, Iron Maiden meets Accept, but then with Rolf's signature powerful vocals, and it just creates their own style here. It's kind of the start of what would become their style of pirate metal. Like, this isn't quite the pirate power metal that they would be putting out on the subsequent albums, but this album is just goddamn great. It's so catchy and sing-alongable. Like, these choruses and hooks are gonna stick in your head. The title track, Under Jolly Roger, come on, that is so goddamn catchy. Beggar's Night, Raise Your Fist, hit after hit, amazing album. That's why it's in 6th place. Okay, we got 5 more to go now. We are into the top 5, the best of the best. Goddamn, this is hard, but it's a lot of fun to try to rank these anyways. Let's find out what order I got these 5 in. So in 5th place, I'm going to their sophomore album, which is from 1985, Branded and Exiled. So I haven't talked about the debut yet, but this is very much a continuation in style from the debut, much more raw than what would follow. This is like speed metal, old school speed metal. And the only reason I am ranking this one lower than the debut is that I just find the energy and vibe on the debut is a little bit better here. Like, they're very similar, but I like the songs on the debut a touch more than this. It's very close. This album is still great. Like Branded and Exiled, Mordor, come on, and Fight the Oppression, that's just a fucking classic speed metal song. Like, you really feel the Judas Priest influence here, but they're doing their own thing. It's not just a Priest ripoff. They got their own vibe and their own style going on. And this album kicks ass. Amazing stuff. Go check it out if you have not. All right, up next in 4th, I'm going to 1991 with Blazing Stone. So yeah, this one is when they have now basically fully embraced their heavy metal, power metal sound. But here that's getting like even speedier than what they've done before and more like power metal influence, kind of what would follow with Pile of Skulls and Blackhand in. But yeah, this one, I just really find that like it's goddamn amazing. It just really stands out. It's so much fun and it's so catchy and it's just right in the middle of the string of solid albums where they couldn't miss. I don't know what happened later in their career, but early on here, like this is just goddamn amazing. It's exactly what you would expect at this point in their career. Title track, Blazing Stone, amazing. Little Big Horn, White Mask, come on. These songs are amazing. But it's in 4th place. That means there's 3 albums that I like even more. Let's find out what order those are gonna be. In 3rd place, I'm going to the debut from 1984, Gates to Purgatory. So this is much rawer than anything else they ever released, and it's even got like satanic themes in parts. This is just speed metal, classic metal, and dare I say even like a precursor to like first wave black metal. It's got like those touches of early Venom and Bathory, but switching it up a little bit. Like the vocals aren't as raw and raspy as say Bathory. It's still got Rolf's voice, but his voice sounds different here than on the later albums. Like it's just a harsher tone than what would follow, but I absolutely love the blackened speed metal here. This is an old school classic. Yes, the songwriting is not as developed as what would come later on, but this just rips and it still has great riffs and catchy tunes, and it's so much fun. Like, and there's balance as well. It's got these fast-paced rippers, but then it's got some mid-paced tracks as well, and it just deserves credit as an early speed metal gem that I feel like did have some influence on early black metal. You got songs like Prisoner of Our Time, come on, heavy metal anthem that you are going to be singing along to and pumping your fist in the air. Victim of State's Power, Soldiers of Hell, goddamn amazing album, in 3rd place. That just leaves 2. If you know the band, you know which 2 albums I haven't talked about yet, and if you don't know the band, go check out these 2 albums first, because they might just blow your socks off and you're gonna find yourself enjoying a new band. But yeah, this was really tough toss-up for which one's second, which one's first. These have always been my 2 favorite Running Wild albums, but which one I prefer really varies day to day. They're neck and neck. Amazing albums. They were, can't talk here. They were released back to back as well. What order am I going to put them in? For today, in 2nd place, I'm going to their 4th album, which is from 1988, Port Royal. So compared to the album that preceded it, Under Jolly Roger, this really sounds more confident in their sound, fully embracing the pirate theme and just forging their identity of what would become their sound for the following albums and their streak of amazing, like, classic power metal albums. The songwriting here is just really top-notch, and Rock and Rolf, he's just a riff machine, and his vocals have improved as well, and this is just classic speedy power metal in the Running Wild style. Once again, just so much fun, so catchy, full of anthems, and so much melody. It's just, this is a goddamn masterpiece. It has epics, but also has straight-ahead bangers. Everything I want in this kind of album is right here. Easily one of their best albums. Title track, Port Royal, is awesome. Conquistadors, probably the most catchy song on the whole goddamn album. Calico Jack as well. Fucking amazing album. Sounds like it should be in first place, but that just means what's coming next is even better. And in first place, without further ado, the album that's right after Port Royal from 1989, Death or Glory. This is just, to me, it's the culmination of everything they had been building towards, everything they had been working towards, and this is just their crowning achievement. It's their masterpiece. It's, once again, everything I just said about Port Royal, you can apply it here, but this even ups the ante more and is possibly even catchier. You're going to be singing along to every chorus here and just stands the test of time. I feel like this is probably the best Rolf's vocals ever sounded. It was just really improved. The production was improved compared to the early days. And yeah, maybe this one is always hanging in my first place spot because this is the first album I ever heard by them. So it just... sometimes that happens. The first album that really gets you into a band is going to remain your favorite. That has stayed the case here. It doesn't happen with every band, but that's what happened here. And yeah, favorite tracks here. Riding the Storm to kick off the album. Come on, that's one of the catchiest fucking power metal songs I've ever goddamn heard. The Battle of Waterloo, amazing, epic. Marooned. All in all, no weak moments on this whole album. Front to back, absolute masterpiece. And that's why I have it in first place. My favorite Running Wild album. So, anyways, if you stayed tuned to the end, that like I hope you did, then I would love to get your opinions down below. Give me your picks. What is your ranking here? Do you like the later day stuff, like from the year 2000 onwards? I know I was pretty negative on it, but if you like it, hey, more power to you. We can't all like the same stuff. As much as I love this band, I can't just heap praise on every album because that's just not how I feel. But their early works to me, absolutely amazing. Let me know your picks down below. I'm getting all sidetracked here. I'm rambling way too long. That's just a theme through these videos. I talk and talk and talk and don't know when to shut up. So I'm going to shut up now. Until next time, Hammerheart Metal Reviews, out.